When you give people, the audience, the feeling that they're coming with you on this mystery journey, full of unknowns and hypotheses, most audiences perk up. I might tell you what we hypothesize. What we expect to see is that the mutant should be expressed at similar levels. We were surprised to see it went down, but actually, when we did further tests, we found that wasn't a problem. Why? If they can walk with you in real time through the story, versus the robotic. Yeah, so we did this in vitro, then we did some binding assays, and then we also looked in mice, and then here we cut out the livers and looked at the livers. If it sounds like that to you, then of course you're going to. No matter what your project is, you should try to have a single unidirectional storyline. So remember, as much as possible, that avoids forcing the audience to roll back on itself. So we're going to, if there's an idea here, I might have to repeat it here or whatever, but I'm going to keep it moving and it's going to be single. Now you could say, well, my project has 2 parts, like our gentleman here with 2 parts. No problem, you could have 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts. But if that's the case, I think then you have to work even a little bit more to come up with an overarching story that really encapsulates everything. And then so that you're going to say, here's our overall goal, and then we're going to attack it on 2 fronts. Because now in your case, you were able to tell the story in a sequential way, right? You had, I think, one story, and you have sort of step 1, and step 1 led into step 2. That's okay, but you might also have a project where it's parallel arms. That's also okay, but you have to make sure that at this point you have a unified overall story, and that the reader or the listener understands exactly how each of those parts feed in. And you're going to do that, and then you're going to come home, bring them back together. So whatever transition or justification you put here, you're going to put it here as well, right? And then when you close, you're going to close it at the end as well somehow. I want you to consider your story as like a road. And just like on a highway, periodically you have a sign saying, what highway is this? How many miles until Milan? Whatever. Your scientific talk is the same. It's like a journey, a road. And if I'm on this road and I start to lose sight of where I'm going, I start to get nervous. I want to get off the road, or I start to wonder, am I on the right road? Now, when I'm feeling nervous and feeling apprehensive, am I listening to the speaker? No. So every so often as a speaker, you're going to put a sign saying, remember, what we're trying to improve gene therapy efficacy with this virus, so we need to identify da-da-da. So that's what we did. Now we've identified some, then we wanted to see, okay, is it working alone or with other things? So we did a pull down, we found interactors, da-da-da. And every so often I repeat that story. You start and end at the same place. And this actually is very powerful for the audience to feel like your story is coherent. So this is very important. So how you set up your problem, that determines what results you talk about, what conclusions you draw, the big themes that you say, here's how we move forward. It should match, it should map, hopefully one-to-one with what you said at the beginning. You don't want to start your talk saying, we're trying to screen for cancer targets. Then you end your talk saying, this gives us interesting insights into evolution. Because your audience will say, whoa, wait a minute. What? Then they will start to doubt everything that they've heard. They'll start to doubt the whole storyline. So map, the beginning and the end should really map very tightly onto each other. I want you to break away from the traditional parts of a talk. If you're like me, you were trained, okay, a talk like a paper has introduction, methods, results, and conclusions. I want you to break away from that, because that's a killer for repetition. It's a killer for this. Because in my introduction part, I'll mention a theory or a model, and then I will leave it, and then you need that model when we get to results. But I said it 3 minutes ago. And I might say, oh, remember that Jones model that I mentioned? Well, here we're going to test it. Half of your audience, oh, wait a minute, what was that model? Yeah? So if you present information only according to these traditional parts of a talk, it's going to be a disaster because of this. So I'm going to encourage you to break out of that. There's going to be pieces of information that you'll say at the beginning, but you might wait to bring them in later. So you're going to be, what does that mean? You're going to be presenting introduction in the results. You're going to be presenting methods in the discussion, or methods in the results. You're going to be mixing. Don't be afraid to do that. Oh, I can't say that now, that's results. When you give a seminar in your department or in your research group, ask them very direct questions afterwards. So when you finish your talk, ask them later some very key questions that are really the basic things they should understand, and see what they echo back to you. I think you'll be repeatedly shocked how little they really understand about what you're doing. I probably won't convince you in this workshop, but I want to suggest to you that most of your audiences, and remember, we're not talking about the public, we're talking about scientists. Most of your audiences are gray, are more or less gray, on most of the things you present in a talk or in a paper. There's actually very little that they're going to see very clearly immediately. And my challenge to you is to take whatever your project is and distill it, crystallize out, I would say the top 3, 4, 5 big concepts that are going to repeat over and over in your story. Make your whole project relate to these very few things. And so as long as you're moving in that very defined universe, you have a better chance that they're going to remember what those 5 things are. The danger is you're going to say too much. And so they won't see even these 5 most important things. They'll see gray 10 things, but they won't really know how they're related. If they leave your talk, when they leave the room and someone says, oh, I couldn't go to that talk, how was it? What were they talking about? And then that person can say, well, they were looking at that gene, I think in osteoporosis. Oh, really? What were they looking at? Were they looking at the expression? Nah, there were a lot of westerns, and then they did some pull downs. You know what? I'm not sure what they were looking at. So that person went to your 10-minute, 20-minute talk, and they couldn't even get that kernel, that core of what you were really trying to do. Most important that they didn't get is where your work is in the field. So